All right. I want to welcome you all back to the Patriotic Dragon Radio Show. It's a show to bring honest, open, and thoughtful conversation back. Ideas and opinions from and to our community about topics from across the spectrum, allowing groups and individuals to be a part of the process for a better, brighter future. We want to educate, inform, and inspire. As a note, discussions, opinions, and views expressed during the show are those of the guest and not necessarily of the Pickens GOP, WYYZ, or the sponsor. Sponsor this month is Aspire to Inspire BeforeYouExpire.com. It's a website dedicated to the idea that we are all inspired to be more than we are. We are all inspired by something or someone, and we all have time to matter now. Please join us with your stories of aspirations, inspirations, and today. Tonight, we'll welcome Jim Harris back. Jim, good to have you. Dave Leister, Stephen Hall, Bill Cagle.
Thank you.
And to my right, Mr. Craig Stallings.
Top of the evening.
All right, guys. All right. From the standpoint we talked about last week, haven't made a lot of progress, but on the East Blast, my understanding just from a continuation of the conversation was that our local attorney, Phil Landrum, has not proofed and delivered the final document back to the Board of Education, but they have assured me once they do that we'll have it via email, and I have reached out and invited Dr. Perry, our school superintendent for the county, to be on the show, give her an opportunity to talk about it. So hopefully we'll have her. And my thought and my statement that I want to put out is, just a continuation of the previous SPLOST, and will it ever end? And that was kind of the comment by some, but Jim, you're over there shaking your head, so I'll open it up to you. What's your thoughts?
We have bonds coming due. The East Loss will never go away because that's used to pay the bonds off. That's my say on it.
Okay. All right, David.
Well, considering how the budget is made, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know all of you here at the table, you're eager to correct me.
Count on it.
The Board of Education makes their budget, and then based on the budget that they've created, they then set the millage rate that they're going to charge. So it's basically saying we want to spend $30 million, and so now we're going to raise the millage rate to get that $30 million. I mean, I think it's kind of backwards. Mm-hmm. I think that they should probably put a little more effort into where is that going. And I'm not saying that the teachers need to bring more into the classrooms or the parents need to send more in for supplies, but it wouldn't hurt to take a closer look at some of the waste that we have at certain levels. So, and East Blast, it won't ever go away.
I would agree with David here on some of that when he's talking about it seems like it's backwards. Is this prize good? Yeah? All right. Hey, by the way, Rocco's has some amazing prize here. David Leister approved. Mm-hmm. But getting back on topic, I think it is backwards, and we aren't going to revert from. Man, you get me off topic here. Anyways, but we aren't, and so I think we're going to have to ask the questions. Not only set aside the projects and be able to allocate the funds to be able to do so, but be able to ask ourselves what needs to be cut from the budget. I think we're asking a lot of wrong questions and doing a lot of the wrong things. And David hit the nail on the head when he talked about that we're doing it backwards. I would like to see some more cuts as someone who is married to a teacher and has a lot of other family members who are teachers. I know cuts aren't the biggest and most popular thing, but we're going to be having a lot of discussions come up with a lot of other things involving education in the near future, and it's not going to just involve local K through 12. It's also going to be pre-K and that kind of thing very soon. So, in fact, the governor's already asked for $50 million in that direction.
More taxes.
Again, I think we need to be asking those questions that we're not asking. We need to be prepared to ask those and be able to swallow the pill that is a hard one to swallow, but is mandatory.
No, I agree with what the previous three statements were or are. I don't really have much to add to that. I agree wholeheartedly with everything they stated.
Greg?
Well, I think the thing that kind of jumps up to me is how do we know in that school budget, I mean, who's auditing this thing to see that everything's going where it's supposed to be going? So, I mean, is this an arbitrary number, or is it something that they can actually set out and say, okay, this is going here and this is going here? The other thing, and this is something that's been sticking in my craw for a while, is why parents have to provide school supplies when we're spending, and correct me if I'm wrong, what is it, maybe $10,000,
I think it's about
$12,000
$10,000, $12,000.
Yeah, $10,000 to $12,000 per student per year. So why are we bringing school supplies at $12,000 a student? I would think that they'd be able to send them there and back in a limousine.
I think the county and probably just hasn't got anybody who's actually understood how to put out a bid for notebook paper. Maybe that's right.
Well,
I think they can buy in quantity, but I need to show them how to do it.
I want to know what your
Costco has a great deal on that.
What, my what?
I want to know what your craw is, by the way.
My craw?
Yeah, your craw.
This is a craw.
By the way,
If I was Japanese, that would be a craw.
I was going to say, this is my craw.
Now, well, yeah, there you go. No,
Can't die from being in my craw.
Craig opened up thought process there when he mentioned the $10,000 to $12,000 cost per student. Now, you send your kids to a very good private school for less money than that. I do it. I sent both my kids to private school for quite a bit less than $12,000 a year per child. Now,
And didn't have to buy supplies.
and yeah, exactly.
Whoops.
Exactly. Well, if we did, it still didn't cost 12. We weren't spending $12,000 on education.
Right.
So,
You could buy my notebook.
it's I hate to keep beating up government, but it just symbolizes what government does best: waste money.
And I want to make it very clear. I don't want to be that guy who says no and cuts and so on and so forth. But we're not getting the results.
No.
I think if we were all sitting here going, okay, well, there's an overall 80% reading level at sixth grade or whatever, and our sixth graders are reading at 10th grade level or what have you. If that was the case, if they were literate at that level, then I wouldn't be asking these questions. I wouldn't be stating what should be the obvious. But we are there. When you have 25% of our kids are at the required reading levels that they need to be, that's failure. So yeah, I do ask those questions about, is every dollar to dollar being spent properly? And if it's not, then we need to fix that. Not just ask for more money.
But who determines what's proper? I mean, the auditing is done by the chief financial officer. It is audited, but it's not audited to see if it's being used effectively. It's being audited to see if it meets the budget line. So, and the teachers really work hard.
They do.
Yes.
And, they bring a lot of
And
things
they're
in.
handcuffed at that.
Yeah, they're handcuffed. They bring in supplies on their own.
Yes.
And in addition to asking for the students' parents to bring in supplies. So somewhere along the line, it's just off track.
I think it goes back to the management side of things. Why is it that, your central office employees, your school board, or not school board, but your superintendent, assistant superintendent, and so forth, They're career educators. They've never been involved, which I'm not slamming that, but when you're managing a business, and that's what essentially the central office is doing, they've never worked in business before. They've never run a business. They've never been responsible for a sales target or an expense budget or
had
what
to make
have
a
you.
payroll.
Or exactly, payroll. So when you manage from, we need $35 million, okay, here's our millage rate, is that managing?
There's an interesting concept behind that. Now, I do business with governments as well as companies.
I'm sorry.
Another country heard from, Mr. Hall. Anyway, and with governments, the way that it works, and with companies in some ways, is you're given a budget.
Absolutely.
Okay, and if you don't spend that entire budget by your fiscal year, then they cut your budget by the amount that you don't spend. So
Right.
guess what happens in the last month of the fiscal
They
year?
spend like drunken sailors.
We get purchase orders.
I get POs like crazy, and then we starve for the next month. I mean, but I mean, and I think that's what our situation is. We've got a pretty hungry giant in this county that is our education system, and I just don't think that the scrutiny is there on where the money is going. So it's like Herman Cain says, work on the right problem.
That's right.
Who approves the budget?
The Board of Education.
Board of Education.
Exclusively?
Well, and
Personally, no.
And I can't get over this analogy in my head where I watched a John Stossel one time take a sledgehammer to a TV, break it, and essentially do what all governments do. They broke it, so now they got to fix it in order to get a better TV. And I think that's
So
kind
create
of
more government to fix the problem they messed
I
up.
think that's what we're doing here, because David's right. You have a lot of teachers who are doing some amazing jobs, but when you broke the TV, yeah, you're doing a harder job to fix it because you broke it. Not just the teachers, but the entire board, all the way across the board.
Well, I think the root goes back to what we've talked about it on a couple other shows. Is it comes from Washington. The local and the states have only so much say to get those federal dollars. If we did away with Washington, D.C., things would be run more efficiently, and teachers would probably have a lot more freedom, and the counties would have a lot more freedom to actually do their jobs. That's the reason there's so much frustration right now with teachers, not only here in Pickens County, but any county period, in any state. You talk to anybody, they're frustrated. They're just counting the days so they can get 30 years because they're tired of fighting the bureaucracy, not doing the job they were hired to do and that they were doing 10, 15 years ago.
I think one other issue, if I could, is that I think, like I say, working on the right problem, and instead of hiring someone with a business background that understands budgets and how they work, we're worried about getting people with letters on the ends of their names.
That's right.
Because it seems prestigious. And while that might sound good, in practice, it just isn't practical. We need somebody that understands that, hey, if I have $10, I can spend $10. I can't spend $20 because I've only got $10. And you'd think with people with letters at the ends of their names would understand that.
Yeah, but they think that they'll just go in your pocket, get the other $10 instead of managing to what they got.
Yeah.
But, and not to disparage any teachers at the table or people who have family who are teachers, but a couple of statistics came out this week. We just finished up a 10-year Harvard study.
Oh, boy.
Oh, well, it must be accurate.
It's got to be accurate.
I don't know if it was accurate, but
Harvard.
it was darn sure interesting. That the lowest SATs in college belong to two areas of graduates.
School teachers.
Educators had the lowest SATs,
Lawyers.
and marketing managers and marketing had the second lowest SATs as they started into college, and they're the ones that are now teaching our kids, managing our schools, and that type of thing. So just a little sideboard. Thank you, Harvard. Another study that they put out was the end of a 10-year study with immigration, all the different questions about who gets into our state and state-run colleges and all. Asian Americans are being slighted across the board. got a case of a young Asian American, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but a young Asian student who was coming to Georgia Tech and didn't get into the class because he wasn't in the right minority group, even though his SATs and ACTs were 140 points higher than the average white student who got into the class in 2014, and his scores were 310 points higher than the African American students who got into it to admissions. He is suing Georgia Tech, and it looks very much like he's already been accepted in the class. They made a spot for him, but the case is not over with. Georgia Tech backed up and pedaled on it, but 140 points higher than white students and 310 above African students who got in, and he got pushed out and said that his minority was not large enough to be considered in the class of 2014 at Georgia Tech.
Now, I don't know the story very well, but I do want to make a comment on it. If we're going to say that testing should not be the go-all, as someone who's a non-traditional student who did struggle in school, who did finally get their the BS, by the way, that's just so everybody knows.
Wear it so well.
That was not.
You got to say the whole thing. You spell the alphabet.
Yeah, exactly.
The acronym. You got to elaborate on what
Especially
it
in
is.
this crowd.
But I think
It's a tough crowd.
there could be a lot of other factors that could allow those other students to get in. You're talking about extracurricular activities, those kind
Sure.
of things. So while if somebody like that is struggling at Georgia Tech, I'm wondering what other schools did they not get into?
No,
So-
not that they were struggling. Their SAT and ACTs were a full 140
Yeah,
above.
but that's what I'm saying is was Georgia Tech the only school that he applied for?
It was the one he wanted to get into, and then that brought up.
But I think there's a state law that Georgia Tech. It seemed like I heard, read something not long ago, maybe 6 months ago, that they have to. Was it 80% has to be Georgia students or American students or whatever, something like that.
No, not Georgia Tech.
Okay.
In-state.
In-state.
In-state. I
In-state.
think it's in-state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's from Gwinnett County. Grew up.
Oh, wow.
And then the second
Hey.
part, and here's the second part of that study, that in the past 10 years of college graduates in households, Asians by 49% have bachelors of science. That's what he said. Compared to the general population in the United States of 28%. So you got Asian students with households at 49% with bachelors of science degrees, and you can't get in because they're only 3% of
The population.
the class of 2014. So,
Yeah, well, reverse discrimination is something that the courts are finally looking at and going, yep, this is wrong. We've got to do something about it.
yeah.
10 years ago, you couldn't get them to even so much as look at it.
Yeah, so I'm really proud of this young
The
young
reverse decision in Texas, the lady who was a white lady,
The girl.
and she couldn't go to class because it was filled by a minority, and she took it to court and she won.
student. There you go, and that's the way it ought to be.
I mean, it's just, how can you keep smart people out of college?
Yeah, take the
Democrats.
Unless you want-
As Democrats.
Now, be nice. unless you want to screw up the curb, let them come in.
all boats float everybody up.
That's right.
That's right.
All right. Well, enough on that. Want to touch base on the Marble Festival review, and I'll say, as I said in my notes, weather aside, was it a good event? And first off, I want to thank my counterparts, David Leister, Stephen Hall, and Darren Satterfield, who's not here. He may still be drying out his shoes, but for your help, support, and a beautiful Saturday morning to spend together, decorating, and to David's two children and the Troop family, which they deserve the plaque, I think, more than anybody, because it's like their third parade that they've showed up. And when I made a comment about the rain, Miss Troop said, we've been up since 6. We all got rain gear. I mean, they were just phenomenal.
I'm proud of David running that 5K too. He wasn't expecting to that morning, but he did a very good job.
Yeah.
Was somebody chasing you?
That earns you a special place in my heart.
That's it.
No,
But,
it's me chasing after the gentleman next to me. He was speeding away.
Speeding away.
Hey, the marshal gave me orders, man. You don't disobey the marshal.
Yeah, really.
It was
But
done.
just want to thank everybody for
fair.
participating in it, and glad to say that of our float and one other one that actually had something to do with marble, we won second place, so got a nice plaque from the Chamber of Commerce and the Marble Festival. David was there to receive it, and But as far as the event, I understand the notes from today and the progress. I actually looked at them last night online, that they are considering offering those vendors another time to come back and at no charge, which I think is phenomenal.
Yes.
I think that's the way to handle, what we couldn't control, which was Mother Nature. But I tried on Sunday as I went back to thank the vendors that were there, and I had a couple of the vendors tell me that out of all the things they'd gone to, that the Chamber of Commerce and people who visited thanked them more for being there than any other festival they had been at. And adverse weather, talked to a husband and wife that said they were out 40 weekends a year at festivals, and they were treated better at our festival than they were at any one they'd been to.
Last time I did check, though, if I was vendor, thanks, appreciation doesn't pay my bills. So,
Some vendors I talked with, they actually covered their costs. They sold enough merchandise to
Yeah.
cover their costs, and if they come back that free weekend or Saturday, whatever it is, then
They will have
Yeah.
Well, I also started mulling over it, looking more at the bigger picture here. If we take a look at the Gold Rush Festival, the Moonshine Festival, the Apple Festival, those are actually centrally located in their downtown districts, their main streets. Maybe that's something that we need to be looking at. Now, granted,
It used
I know
to be
we've got,
there.
I know it used to be, and we've got the parade now. We've got this, and we've got that. So there's a lot of things that would, if that was the case, there's a lot of things that would be conflicting in that. But we're also having a discussion about how to revitalize the downtown area.
That's the way to do it.
If we aren't showing that off, I remember standing in line as I was getting the biscuits that morning, and two old ladies were asked by the cashier, "Well, are you here for the Marble Festival?" To what now?
Two senior citizens.
Senior citizens.
seasoned.
They will smack you with a cane for calling them an old lady.
Well, you didn't rile up and you climb over the table, so
He's not a lady.
I'm not a lady, but I'm armed.
you heard it right here, folks. That was a threat.
Yes, it was. Donnie, come on down.
Anyways, so they were like, "No, we're going to a flea market," and I thought they're totally bypassing Jasper and going to another county north, and they are not
Murphy.
coming to the Marble Festival. And I thought, there's something wrong here. So if we're trying to say revitalize the downtown Main Street and say, come check it out, at the same time we're saying, hey, what can we do to revitalize the Marble Festival? Actually put one on top of the other.
Yeah.
Other counties do it.
I got an idea, though. One of the issues that we had, it rained like crazy, so we were all in a quagmire. Okay. I think location-wise, that if we'd have rented the old Lawson Chevrolet property,
Yeah.
we would have had exposure to 515.
Wow. Now that is a
Yeah.
concept.
I was going to mention I had a friend of mine that was a vendor. He said the same thing.
Yeah, Lawson
Said the exact
Chevrolet,
same
old
thing.
Lawson Chevrolet property would be outstanding. You
Absolutely.
have several different levels, all the parking you could possibly
That's right.
stay
And where
on.
everybody wants would
And
be
everybody's
paved.
gonna see it.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
they're going up and down 515, they can't miss it.
The vendors
Okay,
could have been
so
on the grass and the people
I'm just
could
going
have
to put it
walked
out there. Craig and I are now taking consulting fees on how to put these
Well,
festivals together.
And also,
You need to talk to Al Lawson.
You know
quick.
what though? On the return, if they're going to come back, I think that's where we ought to put them is out there at Lawson
Yeah.
Chevrolet,
Good idea.
where people can see it.
yeah, that's a great idea. But also, it's too bad that there's not an area in the marble area in Tate, Nelson, whatever, where
There is.
well,
but you're
yeah.
not going to find it.
well, yeah.
Tate days would have already figured that one out if that was the case.
Right. But I mean, because that's where the history is. And, I've been doing the quarry tours for the last several years. And you had it was a lot more people turned out for the tours than I would have bet with the way the weather turned out. And fortunately, the weather, it drizzled a little bit, but it wasn't unbearable. The torrential rains had stopped, and everybody that was on I did 3 tours, and I had so many comments like, "Well, I had no idea. I had no idea that there was the history here and what have you." So there is an opportunity if it's presented right, but it goes back to getting the word out, promoting it like we talked about before. There was no social media campaign. They've got a fairly new employee that's their job is to put together the Marble Festival.
And she'd only been there a month.
Right. So, how come this job wasn't filled a year ago or 6 months ago?
Right.
And so, getting the word out that, the chamber's got a really nice little, the little visitors pamphlet they put in the rest stations throughout the state. Very nice pamphlet there, very informative. So if they just get the social media part out, the campaign, Twitter, Facebook, what have you, that stuff's free. I mean, that is free. Doesn't cost a dime.
There you go. So, anything anybody else want to add to it?
Just remember that the Apple Festival is the next 2 weekends.
The what? I don't know.
Apple Festival.
I don't know anything about that.
So it's the next 2
And
the car show is the second weekend of that festival. That I do know.
How come
Well,
they,
and-
how
and
come they
Heritage-
can have a
Heritage Days.
how come they can have a car show on Main Street in Jasper, closing off the streets, and they can't do that same thing for the Marble Festival?
They used to do that.
Put the tents up on the street.
They used to.
I saw that. I remember that.
It used to be
lined
right there
it.
along
Of course,
the,
it can be done.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it used to
called
be
leadership.
in Main Street and also going down.
DB Carroll.
DB Carroll.
DB Carroll. Which is a perfect street to carry it on down.
Right.
That's what we did with the St. Patrick's Day when
We did that on
that.
Jazz Festival, remember?
Yep. Yeah. So there's a lot of things stuff and
Now we have all that parking behind the new courthouse.
and you can shuttle people over very simply.
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe what we'll do is once the weather settles down, we'll invite the people from the chamber to come in and maybe we can talk about some of these kind of ideas and stuff and see if the different groups that we've all talked about can be a part of planning and developing.
And
everything
another
from-
thing that they've done away with that I think's hurt is they've done away with the fine arts competition, the sculpting competition. I think that was a huge draw because I've heard a lot of people comment that they don't do that anymore. So
Yeah, and Sunday, I tell you, the contemporary gospel groups who were there, I came to list just 2 of them. One of them had been on tour, I think last year with Third Day, and they were really.
was there.
No, they weren't there, but the band that had opened with them and traveled with them and stuff was one of the three. Oh yeah, no, I would have stayed all day for that one.
Yeah.
So, but it was really good. So, all right, so enough on the Marble Festival. A couple of announcements I want to bring in and let people know about it is the GOP's Second Amendment raffle and rally. The gun raffle has started. We've got tickets. Members executive committee have those. You can actually
Buy
go to
them
the.
from Craig Stallings at Stallings Industries at 869 Pioneer Road, Jasper, Georgia.
He's trying to get his second book so hard. That's it. All right. And the raffle and the rally will actually be here at Rocco's on December 7th, that Monday night, 7 p.m. Glad to say that Alani Waters and Craig Nicholson's group with the 4-H Shotgun Club have agreed they're going to be here, and those young people will get to be part of the drawing. We'll let them draw for the prizes, talk a little bit about their program, and so excited about that. And it's for a good cause. Part of the proceeds from this are going to go to a scholarship for graduating 2016 Pickens County High School senior, and some other scholarships we're actually looking at as well. So please get in touch with. You see an executive committee member, or go to Pickens County Republican Party.org, David, or is it .org?
.org.
Yeah, .org. and there'll be information on there as well. Second thing we've got coming up, February 27th at Chattahoochee Technical College. We've got the group out of Marietta, the Sock Hops, which they're a group that they do 50s, 60s, 70s style music. They're going to be performing the 27th. Those tickets will go on sale first of the year. So it's after Valentine's Day. It's after some of the other things we've got. I think the Winter Ball here in Jasper. So come out. That's music that we all either grew up dancing around on our parents' feet, or we actually are old enough to have danced at high school in our socks.
Or you saw that at the Smithsonian.
Or we saw that at the Smithsonian. Yeah.
And bring your four-wheel drive because it will be snowing.
Yeah. All right. So now I want to kind of jump to some state issues that have been in the news, on the internet, and everything else. And it just seemed like a never-ending thing for our friends in the Atlanta public school system and the surrounding counties. Lee May is the latest, I think, victim, or has, or I guess would be the right word for it, of the scandals there and trying to straighten the stuff out. And my question tonight for everybody is kind of twofold. First is, could we fall into the same trap in Pickens that we're seeing teachers having to do, being forced to do, make adjustments to grades and that type of thing? And the other side of it is, what can we do and make sure from a standpoint of citizens, parents, that make sure that that kind of thing does not happen? David, you're nodding your head. I'll let you start.
I don't see that happening in Pickens. I mean, that would be like a principal going to a teacher saying, you teach X, Y, and Z to this grade level, but only teach X and Y because we don't want to find any needs students in the class, and that way it'll keep our numbers down. I don't see that happening. So I have a lot of faith in the school system, and especially the central office, to make sure that things are done legally.
Okay. All right.
Well,
Jim? No, oh, sorry, Stephen.
No, I was just going to say that I don't think DeKalb County 50 years ago thought the same thing either. But if certainly our teachers aren't falling into that, I would imagine they are not doing that. But is the pressure high? Absolutely. If you were to, I think, were to measure the barometer of the pressure that's coming from D.C. or from the state or both, I think it's extremely high right now. And whether you're in DeKalb County or you're in Pickens County, the pressure's the same.
But given 5 to 20 years in prison, I think any teacher that would be tempted would be smart enough not to do it now. I mean, that's what's out there, 5 to 20 years.
Well, that's
you would
true.
have thought that they'd learn from APD,
Yeah.
Atlanta Public Schools, but
Yeah.
DeKalb County apparently needed, 101, 102, 201, 301.
Everybody needs a little reinforcement once
Trial
in a while.
by error and error and error and error.
Well, and you think about it from this standpoint, if I'm a teacher in DeKalb County, and my school and my students are underperforming, am I going to be able to go to Walton County and get a job, or go to the Atlanta Public Schools to get a job? Or do I need to try and hold on to my job, as we talked about? I've only got 6 years left where I can retire and get my state retirement. What Mr. Principal, Miss Principal, or whatever, what do you think what should we do? Okay, well, I'll do that this year.
Well, I think DeKalb County's got overall deep
And that,
corruption and other than just
yeah, and that's why I say I think that Mr. May was somewhat a victim. Is I could not believe, as I was reading through the reports, that when he called he actually is the one who called the district attorney's office and said, I need y'all to come in here and investigate this. And their response back, knowing the history of DeKalb County, they said, are you sure you want us to do that? And he said, oh yeah. And they were like, okay. I mean, they reluctantly came in, evidently knowing what they were going to find. And I don't think that Mr. May realized just what he was opening up. I think he thought he had slapped enough people on the wrist that the problem wasn't prevalent and it was going to be one or two. And as they got into it, it was just as widespread as when he started. And it's costing us.
Yeah, I have a business experience with DeKalb County that is somewhat interesting. A few years back, there was a bid on some seals for a water treatment plant, and they were spec'd out a particular manufacturer that I don't handle, but I said I can offer an or equal, and they said we don't really want an or equal. I said, well, it's a public bid, you got to accept something. So I put my bid in and found out that I was $50,000 lower than this other bid, and they said, well, yeah, but you didn't bid what we wanted to. So I went before the county commissioners and said, why are y'all spending 50 grand more to keep from leaking poop on the ground? That bid got thrown out, but I think that's indicative of what DeKalb County has been for a long time. It's a quagmire, and it needs to be cleaned up.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, let's just hope it doesn't filter its way to Pickens County, because the people that are managing these counties seem to be relatively knowledgeable, either in avoiding or not discussing or something. But this county seems to be run pretty well.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of time doing this in my prior experience and working with a lot of businesses and trying to push some policy in education. And one of the things that I quickly found out was that if you have somebody, they could be the Fortune 5, well, they have to be the Fortune 500 companies to be able to fly in their Lear jets and take a look. So your Mercedes-Benz companies, those kind of companies that are your sticklers of your traditional lifestyles, if you will, they fly in, and the first question that they're going to ask is, how does the education system look in this area? And that's the point that that hits home is not just our kids, but our business has a huge impact on this. And we're also talking about property values and a lot of other things that are impacted on the fact that we can't adequately get our education standards up to par. Our kids, they're getting the jip on this, but also we got to be able to acknowledge the fact that our businesses will be failing, that those companies will be flying in or driving in or what do they do, whatever they do, looking at it and going, okay, wait a second, this wasn't what we originally had planned on. So they hop back on their Lear jets and they fly right on out.
There's a reason that Mercedes-Benz put their plant in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I mean, no shortage of crash test dummies.
Well,
send all your responses to Will. Here's the address.
That's it. And they're paid darn well for it, too.
I was actually referring to the Mercedes, not the plant itself. But
if you're talking about the corporate office,
the corporate office,
then you'll know that their actual address is Milton, Georgia. It's not Atlanta, Georgia.
Yes.
Well, Fulton County, excuse me. But there's a reason for that. There's a reason. There's a reason for that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
They did not make that decision lightly.
No, they did not.
But that's again one of the things that you have to look at the variables of how that impacts, and it's not just the kids.
Porsche was bright. They put theirs on an EPA site at the end of the runway in Atlanta.
They got a deal. They really
did they get a deal?
Yes, they did. All right. Sorry. Okay. Well, like I say, I feel for the students and the parents that are trapped in the Atlanta public school system, and both of the scandals there in DeKalb County just reinforce what I think all of us at this table would like to see, which is school vouchers. I don't want to see any student from any family who wants to do better trapped in a school that they can go 2 miles down the road to a better school. They should be able to take their money and go where the education, the parental involvement, and the administration involvement is what it should be. That's my thing. All the other things aside, they can go to jail, they can repay the money they misspend or whatever, but the student should be able to go where they want to go.
I agree.
All right.
But first you're going to have to get public school, the folks that run the public schools not to see private education as a competitor. Because that's the reason they bow up so badly is, hey, they're taking our jobs, they're taking our money, they're taking this and that.
Well, I wouldn't have a problem if I was a parent and I was in the Atlanta public school. Give me my $16,830. I'll take it and go to Walton County.
No, Craig, that's where you got it wrong. Look at it as a competitor, but not an enemy.
Okay, I got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that.
But-
You know,
Competition
I'll
makes,
take it and
makes
go to
things
another
better.
public school district, but I want to go to a public school district like Henry County that has built a career academy at their high school that's got special programs for students and that can get by the time they graduate 4 years in high school, can have their first year of technical college done at no cost. That's what needs to happen. If there's a private school that they can go to, great. But if they want to go to a different county and their parents are willing to drive them, they should be able to take their money and walk. So,
To answer your question, though, could it happen in Pickens County? Hey, anything's possible.
absolutely.
Like Jim's, yeah, I'd like to think that it won't, but that also, we have to look at ourselves in the mirror. If we don't stay involved and hold our officials, keep our officials accountable, anything's possible. Now, with all due respect to the current leaders in the county now, I don't think that they would do anything like that. But who's to say 20 years from now something could change?
Right. And that kind of brings me back up to our first topic. Just to reinforce, we definitely hope that Dr. Perry can be on our show and give a little bit more information on what she's expecting from the East Blast and a clearer explanation of how it'll be handled and that type of thing. So we look forward to having her on the show. On a national scene, regretfully, the topic that I've got on here is the Oregon shooting. But I want to preference it by, is it, and it's not being talked about this way in very small circles. Was it a mental health issue or was it a hate crime?
Both.
Well, then that's a good way to look at it. But it's all open up to you, Bill. What are your thoughts on the Oregon shooting?
No, I think it's an absolute. I don't know how to put it in words. I mean, it's terrible. I think it's both. Obviously, the guy was off his rocker. You've seen reports. I don't know how valid they are that he was part of the black Muslim group or some black.
well, he was definitely biracial.
Well, yeah, but
He
there's
was photoshopped. That's the amazing part is he's a biracial man and he was photoshopped as being white.
but he was a part of some. When I say black, I don't think I'm necessarily talking about skin color black, but there's a black radical like ISIL. It's called the Black Muslim. It seemed like I read some headline on that. I don't know if it was true because we all know if you see it on the internet, it's got to be pretty accurate, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's what Lincoln said.
That's right. I read that on the internet too. So, but the thing that gets me is whether it was a hate crime or a mental health issue. If it was a hate crime, which I think is probably a little bit of both, because he singled out Christians. Had he been as lily white as any of us sitting at the table here, and declared his, love of Christ or whatever, and went off the deep end, I guarantee you the Justice Department would already be prosecuting him or filing some type of hate crime charges against him.
Yep.
So, the double standards that our beloved administration has, who I have less than zero regard for, with him singling out Christians, it's unfathomable to me how come our Justice Department isn't investigating that a little bit more thoroughly. And the fact that Obama comes on within the first hour talking about gun control. And he admitted that he was wanting to politicize this issue. And talking about politicizing, all this does is proves that gun-free zones don't work. The liberals for the last umpteen years has had everything they want. They've had it go exactly the way they want as far as education, these gun-free zones and what have you. and every one of these mass shootings happens in a gun-free zone.
Well, Bill, let me speak to the first part there. There have been more mass shootings under Obama's
Absolutely.
administration than any other time.
That's exactly
now,
right.
that speaks to a larger point in my head, and it's not each and every individual, because as soon as you look at each and every case and each and every individual and you try to look for a pattern, then it becomes too disturbing, I think, because you're not looking at the right variables. But one of the things that you and I talked about outside after the radio show was culture.
That's right.
And one thing that I'm going to bring up here that I think is poignant is the fact that, as I said out there, as I will say on here, if you brought somebody in that was from the projects downtown Atlanta and you put them into the room, put them into a room, and you brought somebody, say here from Pickens County, who was also struggling with the same financial situations and alike, you put them both into the same room, and you took away their clothes, theoretically. You took away their identity and culture and music and all this and that. They are the same individuals.
Very similar. I would agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we have an administration now
They're
that wants to say
glorifying-
one that says they are very different,
Right.
but he's not responding to any culture. He's what I think he's failed everyone in his.
He's failed, period.
He's failed in what everybody wants to call is the black culture or the urban culture. He's failed there. He's failed here in the rural cultures that need him as well. He's failed all the way around.
No.
And it's not.
No, he
hasn't
succeeded.
failed the Muslim culture that he grew up in.
Exactly.
Well, but
Thank you.
I think one of the things that I'm trying to get to is the fact that there is, while you may think that he has an edge in one area, he doesn't have an edge in any. He's what Eric Erickson would call not a jack of all trades, but a joker to none. And so or an ace of none. Excuse me, I got that wrong. But the problem again, the bigger point to me is culture, and we have to stop looking at as everybody is coming from different parts of the culture. They are very similar. And we have to understand that they are similar, and if we can start to understand that, then we can start to go at the heart of the issues. And because I think a lot of times we end up in these situations, we also have to look at the leadership and who is
Well,
carrying
that's
the
it.
ball.
There is no leadership.
And again, that's what I'm reiterating over and over and over.
Just because
again
you
here.
receive more electoral votes, that doesn't mean you're a leader.
But if we're seeing more mass shootings than ever before, and we're
Prove my
seeing
point.
cultural breakdown all across the board, not just
And I think
in
that's
one
by
area,
design with him.
not just in one area, but all across the board, then we have other questions that need to be answered right way before we can just drive ourselves into this. Well, what do we need to do about guns? There's a lot of other questions that need to be answered.
Well,
And
I want to throw out a little statistic, and then we'll keep running around the table. What I was looking up there, they just another one of the studies that just came out because of all these things. The United States ranks number 4 in the world as far as violent crime with guns.
Unless.
What? But here's the caveat:
Yeah,
when you take Detroit, Chicago, Washington D.C.,
Baltimore.
and Baltimore out
And
of
New
the
Orleans.
and New Orleans out of the equation, it moves us down to number 74 in the world for violent crime.
And
So those cities and states have the toughest gun laws in the entire country.
And they're all run by.
that's Democrats.
I didn't say it that time, Jim.
I didn't pass it.
So, that kind of
And have been for years.
Oh, yeah.
it brings
Decades.
it.
I agree. I firmly believe in my right to have a gun. I don't question that whatsoever. How I use it, though, I question, and how you should be trained to use a gun.
Yeah.
I don't have
It's too
problem with
easy.
that.
It's too easy to pull out a gun and shoot somebody when you're in the heat of an argument with somebody. And that's in all those cities you're talking about.
Yeah.
But those guns, I would wager, are purchased illegally
Oh,
or
sure.
stolen.
Sure they are.
You know, if and I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but with that train of thought, Georgia, thanks to my good friend Rick Jaspers a couple years ago, passed one of the most liberal gun laws in the nation. Well, gun sales just right up the sidewalk here, and the bargain barn have gone crazy since our beloved ruler's been in office. How come we're not having mass shootings here in Georgia? How come we're not having mass shootings in Alabama or Florida or wherever? These are all happening predominantly bluer states or purple states, and huh?
In the no gun zone.
In the no gun zone, exactly right.
That goes to speak
So-
to a bigger point. Not just the states that these are happening in, but the fact that they're happening in
The
no
no gun
gun
zone.
zones.
Yeah.
But there are areas of the states that
In the
have
mil-
more
in the-
stringent gun rights.
In the military, we call that easy targets. That's what
Exactly.
It goes back to when Reagan was shot, and every president since then has tried to limit. Why do you need a 20 mag AR-15? Why do you need that?
Okay, why not? Why do I not?
I was just saying, why would you justify in your head to have a 20 mag magazine that you can shoot 20 shots in 2 minutes?
All right.
See,
well,
what I really want, I want a 20-shot S-wing hammer because I can do way more damage.
well, okay. So what's the magic number? Like New York passed the 7. 7. All right. All right. Okay. So in not Columbine, but up in Sandy Hook a few years ago. All right. If you halfway are coordinated, whether you got a 7-round magazine, a 10-round magazine, or a 20-round magazine, to shoot off 100 rounds, it's only going to take about 2 or 3 extra seconds to reload a couple
I agree
extra magazines.
100%. I'm not arguing that. But if we want to start someplace to make an effort to do something about gun control, why not pick on the ones that are just buying these things to have them? And then somebody steals one and kills 40 people with it.
Well, I would wager that those aren't being bought legally.
Oh, I think they are.
That are
No,
just wanting to
you
kill
could-
somebody? No.
No, but he brings up an interesting subject, just to have them. Man, if you go to look at my father's safe right now, it's or anywhere, just about
I'm an
anywhere.
NRA instructor, Jim, so I hate to burst your bubble.
I'm not arguing that point. I'm just saying we have to do something.
Okay.
And this group is not going to solve that problem because we don't agree with anything. Because stupid people shoot. The stupid people are stupid people.
That's right.
Angry people are angry people. How do you stop that in our society?
Well, then should we?
Are you angry? Are you angry today?
No, but should we
Take your
should
guns
we
away from me if
possibly
you're
be
angry
looking at
today.
other variables to curb the tide of stupid people in this world? I mean,
Well, now the other thing is natural selection is alive and well.
Yeah.
If you don't
In
believe
Detroit, Chicago.
Yeah.
if you don't believe it, look at people doing meth.
Exactly.
If that's not natural selection, there's never been one.
but I want to speak to
Give
one
them more.
one other point before we move on to something else. A lot of people want to describe that. This country has this rights, and look at their crime rates. And you know what? I don't want to be compared to those other countries.
And I'm not
'Cause
gonna.
we are
I don't want to be
exceptional.
compared to a
United-
country that had their guns confiscated.
Exactly.
The
From
United
them.
States is
That's
still
not.
an exceptional country. We are still very good, and I don't
I
want to be
agree.
compared to another country like that. Sorry.
Yep. All right. Anybody else want to add anything else to
No,
that?
I'll pass.
All right. Okay. One other little a note that came in today. We were talking about the Asian student at Georgia Tech had at Dartmouth College. The young lady who was hired as the Native American Studies officer for Dartmouth College, which was originally designed as a college for Native Americans. That's what Dartmouth was founded for. It was there to educate the Native Americans. It became an Ivy League because of obviously the exceptional students.
Note that Harvard was also a Christian school at one point in time too.
Everything changes. But so this young lady got that job as Native American Studies, and one of the other Native American students who got passed up for a scholarship didn't quite understand why he did. His lineage was there, everything and stuff. So he actually did some research on this young lady, which she stepped down today when it was found out that being a part of the Eastern Delaware Nation was actually a group founded by her father and they're all Irish. But he found the basically named himself the Eastern Delaware Nation, got the exemptions, and his daughter was able to go to Dartmouth as a student, had her school paid for, and then got the job as a
People would
native.
call that initiative.
And I mean, that is initiative when you think about it.
Take out Rachel Dolezal's playbook.
Exactly.
sounds like.
So
That loophole closed already?
Yeah, I got Cherokeeing on both sides of my family now. That's giving me some ideas.
yeah, really. So I just thought that was interesting as we look back at this young Asian who had exceptional SATs and still couldn't get into school.
But doesn't that fit in with today's self-identifying culture?
Oh yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So,
That-
you know.
that's
We
what
got
I was.
a decathlon champion that's now a female, so or claims to be a female. So hey,
And it's gonna. I want to skip over the world issue that we were going to talk about because I've got one that I want to throw out there in our last 4.5 minutes here. Is that the hyphenated society we live in, and Mr. Whatever Jenner is a good example. This young lady with Eastern Delaware Nation that didn't exist of Irish Indians. I know there's some Irish people who dated Indians. I'm pretty sure of that, but I don't think it was actually a nation. Is what happened to us being Americans first, and our parents and our grandparents were, of Irish descent or German descent or Indian descent, but we were and are Americans first and foremost.
I think that everything is relative here. As someone who has
I'm
a
not
disability,
your relative.
no. I think you were
We
too
go
far
way-
away from the mic to say anything. So I'm gonna go.
Ask him what relative humidity is.
But as someone who has a disability, I do not look at myself as a disabled person. And there's a lot. Everywhere you go, you want to be able to fall into a category. You want to be able to find somebody that has commonality in you. That's understandable. But we have gotten away from the fact that you should be able to own who you are.
That's
Not just.
I'm one of 300 million Americans.
But that's okay. That's okay. But I own actually being a disabled person. I own the fact that it's not a curse on me. That's a blessing, and so I think it's okay to be absolutely different and call yourself different, but own it. Own who you are, and I think there's identity crisis, not just in the fact of who I am, but when you have this culture of
Self-loathing people.
thank you.
Actually, I was thinking of the word victimology. If you can't be a victim, then you can't get pity, and if you can't
right.
get pity, you can't get benefit.
And I think you're absolutely right. But and I'll wrap this up real quick. But when we live into a society where all of a sudden we can have kids and the kids can decide what their names are and what their genders are, we're actually having these conversations seriously. And I'll leave it at that.
All right. Again, I want to thank everybody for being on this week, and
We live in one of the most beautiful counties in all of the state of Georgia, and yet we have too many people that want to treat it like a trash can.
Yes.
For God's sake, people, keep it in your car and throw it away at home.
There you
there
go.
you go. Absolutely. And we'll close the show on that.